Alright guys, what's going on? So today I got a video about a theme in history and in writing and mostly fiction. Like, I'm sure I could have dove deeper into some historical real world examples, but I have one that's good enough. Actually two that's good enough. And that theme basically is the notion of people in stories talking about resetting back to zero, going back to zero, cutting off the past, cutting off their memories. I tried to find examples where they literally say bring back to zero, but I don't think the spirit behind what that mentality is limited to the specific language of reset back to zero. Like, sometimes I think, if a villain, for example, is talking about cutting off their past or cutting off their memories, I think that's in the same vein as saying resetting back to zero. I'm going into this pretty unprepared, so bear with me. There's a lot of things I want to talk about on this channel that I haven't made videos about. I haven't made videos in a long time, and this isn't something I just found out, and it's not something that's fresh in my mind anymore. So I'm just trying to get all these ideas out there as quickly as possible so I can move on to, like, the things that I'm currently thinking about and currently want to make videos about. But I still think, it's important enough to talk about. A little side note, that is one little piece of advice I would give to someone about, like, creation, like content creation, or doing something creative. Like, if you feel inspired or like enlightened, I guess, at a specific moment, it's probably best to, like, act on it right at that moment, not wait till, like, this is like a year later now that I'm making a video about this, so it's not fresh in my mind whatsoever at all. Anyways, let's get to it. So again, the theme is zero, and we're basically, again, if you're new to this page, this channel, I try to extract themes or tropes or patterns from fiction or, in history, basically across multiple formats, and figure out what that means and, like, how that might speak to you as a person to change, basically, because ultimately that's really what it comes down to, is we have to change as people. But because it doesn't matter. Anyways, I'm going to get to the point. I want to keep this video short. So first up, we have the definition of the word cipher. If you look at the first definition, it says a secret or disguised way of writing a code. So, if someone says decipher, it means like they're solving the code, basically. But basically, the main reason I brought this definition up is down here it says dated, like it's a dated definition, and it means zero, a figure zero, synonym, zero, naught, nil, a row of ciphers. So cipher can mean zero. So cipher means zero, or it can mean zero. The next example is we have this guy from a cartoon called Gravity Falls. Bill Cipher is a triangular dream demon. So, I've talked about dreams and stuff like that before on this channel. Formerly existent only in the mindscape, who wished to gain access to the real world. He has been running amok in Gravity Falls, Oregon, since being summoned by Stanford Pines over 30 years ago, and is also known for his mysterious demeanor and sadistic humor. So his name is Bill Cipher, and, that's obviously the zero. And the Bill thing, I can't guarantee you this, but I've heard people say it, that Bill is like another word for saying bail, or Bill is maybe another variant of, like, some sort of demon's name. And that's possible. I can't confirm that to you, but it's something to maybe look into or consider in relationship to this. I mean, Bill Cipher is a triangular dream demon, so it's not, just using this, it's not too far of a stretch. And, also, we call dollars bills, so I wonder why that is. Anyways, so he's a demon existent only in the mind, in the mindscape. So, if you're not a religiously oriented person, a lot of ways you can think about demons, this is like pretty basic stuff, is as personifications of, like, negative attributes of human emotions and thoughts. Like a spirit of anger, a personification of that, you could call it a demon, or a spirit of addiction. So it's existent only in the mindscape. And You know, there's this video of Carl Sagan talking about interdimensional entities communicating with lower dimensional entities. Like, he gives an analogy. This is Carl Sagan, too, not even some, like, occultist. He's giving an analogy of a 3D creature talking to a 2D creature, and the 3D creature's voice or influence manifests in the 2D creature as a voice from inside the 2D creature. So that would be like, for example, a fourth dimensional creature talking to you in the third dimension, and that's manifesting as a voice from within. So you could look at that as like a thought or a feeling, and I do sort of believe that thoughts and emotions are coming from... you could argue about what's the utility in even thinking about them as like demons and angels and entities from other dimensions. Like, why not just think of them as thoughts and emotions? But I think, first of all, it might actually be true that these are actual entities. So like, it might literally be true. But also, I think it kind of puts more of a grasp on the importance of how truly powerful our emotions and thoughts are and our actions are at creating the reality around us. And how really, like, you know, everyone wants to point fingers nowadays at, like, you know, what's the cause of all of our problems, of what's going on in the world. And really, underneath it all, you have to get at people's thoughts and beliefs and worldviews and their emotions, their values, their principles that are inside their heart. That's why a lot of this stuff... Again, man, I can't cover all my bases in every single video, so I want to stay on topic. Who wished to gain access to the real world. He has been running amok, blah, blah, blah. So he exists in the mindscape, and he wants to gain access to the real world. And if you think about, like, demons existing in other dimensions, in some ways, you know, they might need to influence humanity to manifest themselves in this realm. I know that sounds kind of crazy, and this is off topic from the Zero thing, but just, that's something to consider. I do kind of believe that. Anyways, so Bill Cipher, Dream Demon, exists in the mindscape, wants to gain access to the real world. This is the final boss, and there's different ways you can play the game, like genocide run, where you kill everyone along the way. And really, you know, the game kind of, from what I can tell, kind of tries to encourage you to do what's called the pacifist run, where you basically, instead of like killing all threats, you're, like I was just saying, how important the heart and the mind is in changing those things and to create actual real world change. The pacifist run in this game is more about reaching the hearts of your enemies and, like, basically, you know, encouraging a change of heart out of them to where they stop their wicked behavior or whatever. Again, I haven't played the game, but that's just my view on it. And something to keep in mind too, this guy disguises himself as a sunflower through the entire game, and then he reveals himself to actually be this guy. I'm going to do a video on sunflowers at some point. It's basically a black sun. A sunflower is a black sun. The black sun is Saturn. The black sun is a satanic symbol. I encourage you to look into that stuff. It has real historical, real-world basis, and it makes sense. If you think about the people who were using that symbol and what they did and what they carried out in the world and what their fruit of their thoughts, emotions, and actions were, it makes sense. It's a symbol of death, and it's death worship. And I'm not saying sunflowers are pretty, but from what I can tell, that's what that symbol is a black sun. And I have evidence to back that up, and I'm going to make a video specifically about that. Anyways, he says, all your progress, everyone's memories. So again, like I said, it's not limited to the Zero talk. I feel like the desire to, like, erase your memory and your past falls in line with this way of this Zero talk, and you're going to see more of that. And then he says, or she, I forget, I'll bring them all back to zero. Your progress, everyone memories, I'll bring them all back to zero. In the context of this game, he literally is talking about, from what I understand, I've, like, watched this end fight play out. You know, again, this isn't all fresh in my mind, but in the context of this game, he wants to reset the game. Like, he's aware that he's, like, in a game, and he wants to reset the cycle, like, reboot the cycle, and basically, like, he doesn't want this story to end. He wants it to keep going and going and going and going. If you look into a lot of symbols of time in the occult, for example, one that everyone knows is the Ouroboros, the snake bite, the snake, or the dragon, which I'm going to do another video on dragons. I wish, you know, I could have this all in one video and make it so cohesive for you guys, but, like, you know, it's very fractured, and, like, but it all plays into each other. But again, the Ouroboros is like a snake or a dragon, which is, it's not that reptilian entity for no reason, and it's eating its own tail, and it's a circle. So it's a symbol of time, and it's a circle, which the average person, you ask them about how they conceptualize time, and it's a straight line. Here's the past, here's the present, here's the future. I was once a baby, now I'm an old man. I'm getting older, there's entropy, I'm going to die at the end of it. And for some reason, ancients have depicted time as a loop. Time loops. I could do a whole other video on loops. And you could tie that into reincarnation or Friedrich Nietzsche's idea of eternal return. Or if you want it to be less, even like, again, all this occult stuff, man, you don't even have to be necessarily spiritually oriented to like grasp it. You can be totally view it from like a psychological, secular perspective, although I don't encourage that. I think that level of understanding is important, but you need to move out of the whole limiting yourself to like there is no other realm beyond like this flesh stuff. But the way you can look at it secularly is like, everyone says history repeats itself, right? Well, that's time. Time's a straight line, but history's repeating itself. And why is that? So it's implying a cycle, and that cycle is basically like the rise and fall of civilizations. It's like, okay, why do civilizations rise and fall? And there's probably a lot of, it's probably hard to summarize that or in one simple way. There's probably a lot of variables to that. Civilizations rise and fall, in my opinion, mostly because there's like stages, and I don't have them all pulled up, but off like the top of my head, it's basically like people get their act together, become like responsible, enlightened, and in tune with their emotions. However you want, whatever word would be best for that. Like the opposite, I would say, for the downfall of civilization would be ignorant, apathetic, and irresponsible. So a disabled mind, a disabled heart, and a disabled body or actions. The people create a good civilization, and in that abundance or in that prosperity, people get, it's like that old boomer saying about good times or hard times creating strong people creating good times creating weak people creating bad times. And there's some truth to that. Basically, I think immorality, and just to encapsulate in that one word, is synonymous or runs parallel to like enslavement or the fall of civilization. And you can look at that as God's judgment. That's one way you can conceptualize it. Anyways, I'm falling off topic, but this is all stuff that needs to be said, in my opinion. Time illustrated as loops, and he wants to reset the game, this character here. I'll bring them all back to zero. This one doesn't have the zero keyword that I try to include, but if you just think about what he said, all the past, everyone's memories, I'll reset them all to zero. Here's Kylo Ren saying, let the past die, kill it if you have to. That's the only way to become what you were meant to be. With all this talk about like the occult, and it can seem very abstract and detached from like your real world life, I try to make a point to bring it back down to the everyday guy's level here and there. And the idea, let the past die, kill if you have to, that's the only way you can. I'll give you an example from my life. Like, there's been times in my friend group where I feel like people started to resent each other because we're getting older, we're no longer kids, we're not quite, we're adults now, but people basically feel like they're not where they should be in life. And some of that resentment, people start to blame each other and resent each other because of that. Even though, in reality, most of it, the finger goes right back at you. Take a look in the mirror. Like, most of it's your own fault. It's like you're viewing people, like, in the context of this, the only way to become what you were meant to be, like, your past, too. Like, your friends are, like, almost symbolic of your past, and you want to kill them, in a way, or cut them off so you can become what you were meant to be. Instead of, and, that's a very, again, that's a dark side. That's like a evil approach to motivation, which you really could. I mean, I know it seems corny, but like you really could like motivate yourself off like, oh, I want to get my stuff together for my friends, for my wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. I think that is equally as possible. I know that doesn't really happen. It's happened to me once or twice. It seems like anger and resentment and like spite motivate people more, or at least that's like more of a motivation that's talked about on the internet. Like, oh, you know, get back at flex on your ex kind of stuff. This is a pretty big one. This is from Metal Gear 5, The Phantom Pain. I actually have a video on this channel called like Massive Red Pills in the Metal Gear series, and this little part of this guy's speech is a clip in that compilation of clips. I mean, I encourage you to go and listen to what he says. And this is part of it. This world will become one. And, you know, I'm going to do videos on the whole unity, consolidation type stuff. It's not something, you know, that's another theme, a very important one. But I can't go into depth on that in this video. So this world will become one. I have found the way. Race, tribal affiliations, national borders, even our faces will be irrelevant. The world that the boss envisioned will finally become a reality, and it will make mankind whole again. This is a quote from a guy named Zero. Okay, so think about why his name's that, and think about, like, you know, his name. He has a certain name, and he has a certain goal, and he has certain motivations, a certain perspective on the world, and you start to get, you put all those certain thoughts, certain emotions, and he has, like, you know, again, certain goals. You start to put all that together, and you start to come up with, like, a character profile or an archetype. And this is basically a satanic one. Like, I'm not trying to, you know, be dramatic, but, like, that's really, at the end of the day, what it comes down to. And I can prove that if you're willing to really, you know, bear with me on my ramblings and watch multiple videos and start to see the tapestry. Like, this is just one example, and like I said, I can't put the whole picture into one video. You know, the world's a certain way. It's kind of like chaos and order, or like, yeah, kind of like chaos and order, like, or destruction and creation. Like, he's almost like the Zero in a way is like destruction, because it wants to bring everything back to zero so it can be reshaped. That's one way to think about it. And themes of chaos and order are like super pervasive in the occult, like Freemasonry. That's like literally one of their mottos. I'm not saying it's necessarily evil. Again, that's a whole nother video about how I believe they've twisted the whole chaos and order thing to be nefarious, but as a principle in and of itself, it's not necessarily evil, and I can make a video about that later. Pokemon XD, Gale of Darkness, or from some Pokemon show or game. The minions of these guys named Re6, Blue 6, Gree 6, Yellow 6, Perp 6, Brow 6. 6 as in that, you know, then it says their alias, the Hexagon Brothers. Again, the hexagon, that's the cube. It's a hex. There's a lot to be said about that too. Again, I can't every little thing that pops up in here, I can't spend an hour talking about, but keep that in mind. That's not an accident either. So the Hexagon Brothers are minions of Cypher, which is Zero, the guy that's known for being like the Judas type guy. He literally is like, I mean, if Neo is analogous to Jesus in the story, he's the guy that sells out Neo and the whole crew that's trying to pull people out of the Matrix, and his name's Cypher, which is Zero. And, you know, that, again, I was talking about an overlap between code. This is a dumb example. Oh, okay, see, now I'm remembering part of that other quote from the Metal Gear guy, the Zero guy from Metal Gear. But anyways, in Naruto, there's this group called the Akatsuki, and they're all wearing a ring, and each ring means something different. And this guy is like the pseudo-leader of the group. His name's Pain, which is, again, that ties into why someone would want to reset the world like this, because they're almost motivated by pain, they're almost motivated by resentment, they're motivated by suffering, and they think that the world and fundamentally people, you, me, everyone, is so irredeemable, meaning they can't be changed, they can't be redeemed, which is why one of the fundamental attributes of the heroic archetype is that of redemption. Like, think of that statue of Christ in Brazil or South America or whatever is literally called the Redeemer. Like, you don't even have to believe in the actual resurrection of a literal guy in history named Jesus, the Son of God. Just him as a personification of redemption and hope and mercy and judgment and all these things, primarily redemption and hope. I think there's some value to that. I don't see how any person who can even appreciate any form of art can't see that level of like, can't have that baseline level of respect for like religion. I don't understand that. Motivated by pain. His name is Pain. He's a personification of pain. He says, you know, he's saying he wants to basically, his goal in the show is basically, there's these things called tailed beasts, and for all, like, to put it in, you know, layman's terms, tailed beasts are basically the real world equivalent of nukes, or at least they're going to function that way in the show. And the nukes, the tailed beast nukes or whatever, are his method, his vehicle for achieving peace in the world. So he believes people can't understand each other or get along or change, so I basically have to hold a bomb or a gun to everyone's head. You know, we all saw that in the Cold War, which is, again, this is historical stuff. Everyone thinks I'm talking about fictional stuff. This stuff has so much bearing on reality, it's not even funny. When I watch these fictional shows, I feel like I sit there like they're trying to tell me something. And, you know, but the Cold War, there's that saying, mad, mutual assured destruction. And who knows, like, the truth about all the, like, about history in general, like, how much truth we're told. But, like, the idea of nukes keeping peace around the world rather than, like, goodwill is, if you really break that down, boil that down, what that is, it's like a very condemning, very, pessimistic view on, like, the heart and mind of man, because, like, you have to force everyone to be good, to behave themselves. You have to force peace because people don't really want it. So it's almost like if you give them freedom, what are they going to do with that freedom? Oh, they're going to abuse it. They're going to do this, that, and the other. And why are they going to do that, this, that, and the other? It's because in their heart, they don't value the good. They value the bad. That's the initial presupposition of this stuff. And this is satanic, and that's why I think people don't get it. It's literally death worship, and it's based on that presupposition about if I have to keep peace, I have to, like, keep a leash around your neck, like that, like force. That's based on, in my opinion, a hatred of humanity and a belief that they can't really get their act together, like that they're not good enough to do that. And in the Metal Gear, in the context of Metal Gear, that's something he's saying. He's like, you know, no words will be needed. I encourage you to go watch this clip. It's pretty crazy. You know, he's like, a language of nukes will basically hold the world together. And he's got the same goal as this guy Pain from Naruto, and he wears the Zero ring, which is probably not an accident. Okay, so now we're into historical examples. Even though I've already touched on a few historical examples, here's like another one where it uses the actual Zero term. Year Zero, the Silent Death of Cambodia. I believe that was the name of like a documentary, but they're naming it based off what this guy actually called it. The term Year Zero, I'm not going to try to read that in their language, applied to the takeover of Cambodia in April 1975 by the Khmer Rouge. It is an analogy to the year 1 of the French Revolutionary calendar. During the French Revolution, after the abolition of the French monarchy, September 20th, 1792, the National Convention instituted a new calendar and declared that date to be the beginning of year 1. So again, within this historical example, again, this isn't all fresh in my mind. I forgot about reading this. And not that monarchy is good, but if you look into the French Revolution and the Jacobins and their hat and the Jacobins and the way the revolutionaries acted, they started acting just as wicked as like the monarchs. And that's part of the reason why history repeats itself, because until we have that fundamental, actual, true moral change in our hearts and minds and behavior, we're going to keep going around the loop. We're going to keep going around the loop, around the loop. It's going to keep repeating itself. And we all know that saying, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting something to change. And that's because it's like speaking of the Matrix, it's like a computer program, and it's like you keep doing the same input, you're going to get the same output. How does that, like, that's literally logic. It's not even, I hope this makes sense to you guys. During the French Revolution, blah, 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 blah. So even the French during their revolution called it, this is a new, I mean, they called it year 1, not year 0, but the principle is the same, like, we just fucking pressed the reset button. The Khmer Rouge's takeover of the Phnom Penh, I don't know, this is Cambodian, so like, good luck on me pronouncing this right, was rapidly followed by a series of drastic revolutionary deindustrialization policies which resulted in a death toll which vastly exceeded the death toll which resulted from the French Reign of Terror. So the French Reign of Terror, like I said, the revolutionaries just started acting just as wicked as their oppressors. George Orwell, in the book Animal Farm, he's writing an analogy about farm animals being oppressed by humans. And this is an analogy for the communist revolution in the Soviet Union. And sure, the guys oppressing them were bad. But guess what? Then the pigs, in his story, the pigs overthrow the humans, and then they start oppressing the rest of the farm animals just as bad, if not worse, as the humans initially did. So it's like, what changed? Until we have a fundamental change, shit isn't actually going to change. You're just going to get a different mask on the same face. The idea behind Year Zero was that all culture and traditions within a society must be completely destroyed or discarded, and a new revolutionary culture must replace it, starting from scratch. So this is fundamentally what the Zero thing is all about. All of the history of again, it's like cutting off your past again too, like I talked about. All of the history of a nation or people before Year Zero would largely be deemed irrelevant. That's fun. It's not funny, but because it would ideally be purged and replaced from the ground up. The new people, in democratic Campeche or whatever, so-called new people, intellectuals, and members of the old governments were especially singled out and executed during the purges accompanying Year Zero. This dude, Pol Pot, and his, whoever else is behind this, man, I don't know, again, the truth about history and who's really pushing all these revolutions and what hidden... I mean, in my opinion, the hidden hand behind stuff like this is always demonic. It's like we talked about, forces from other realms influencing man so they can manifest themselves in this world. And I do believe that. That's why the Bible says, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. That's one of my favorite verses of all time. And it really gets you to focus on the real enemy and what's really causing this stuff. And it really is demonic in the most real sense. I mean, if you're not, I hate to put off some of my audience, if anyone even watches this video, but that's really what's going on here. There's utility in focusing on it from that level. Otherwise, what the clarity that focusing on it from that level brings is you start to realize what's actually causing it. Like if you look at a historical event otherwise, from a little microscope, with not looking at it holistically, you start to think, oh, that must mean the Cambodians were evil. That must mean the French were evil. Look how bad they act. Like, you start to lose sight of, like, what's actually going on. You start to, it ruins your insight, in my opinion. You start to think, oh, all evil flows from this one group. Like, you would think that's, like, outdated and, like, moronic thinking, but it's still very pervasive. The idea behind Year Zero was that all culture and traditions within a society must be completely destroyed or discarded. So they're creating a new world order, and if you're deemed or judged to be part of the old way, you're gonna get phased out, either ideologically or like literally, like your life is going to be ended. And I think that's what's happening now. Led by Pol Pot, April 17th, 1975, we're Cambodia, blah blah blah. Soldiers evacuate the cities and move everyone to the country. Why? Pol Pot wanted to restart the calendar at Year Zero to get rid of the past and past traditions. He eliminated threats to the future by destroying all parts of the past. Again, this is based on okay, everything's so fucked and everyone's so fucked, pardon my language, that we just have to hit the reset button. There's no salvaging this. Just start over. Right? Again, I don't think you can separate I'm going to do a video about the dragon archetype or symbol and like how it relates to the Antichrist and how the bad guy, the ends justify the means type stuff. Like how he thinks he's being a savior by acting this way, which, if I want to elevate the bad guy's argument to its ultimate position and combat it from an idea point perspective, that's how you would do it. But he again, to eliminate all threats to the future by destroying all parts of the past, he thinks he's creating a good future or saving the world by being like a savage in the moment and getting rid of everyone else. So there's your real historical example. Even the word revolution, talking about time loops and revolve, literally the prefix in that word is revolve. This is a quote: "Since he is of no use anymore, there is no gain if he lives and no loss if he dies." So you see the mentality. I'm trying to speed this along now, so I can keep this under an hour. Okay, I'm not going to play this because I would definitely get hit with copyright. People like you, I'm just going to read it to you. This is from Yu-Gi-Oh! In my video on Unicursal Hexagram, there's this like secret society group in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Show, and this is like the same group, but I'm extracting quotes about the zero reset philosophy rather than the Unicursal Hexagram thing. People like you who pretend to be righteous all the time could never come to terms with the depth of such logic. The depth of our despair and sorrow is unparalleled to anyone's on this earth. So again, you see that motivation by pain and misery. It's almost like putting it on a pedestal. And you'll see that a lot. I'm going to do it again. I keep telling all these videos I'm going to do, and I'm going to do them. And I hope you guys watch them and you start to see how they keep connecting with each other. The death culture, the putting of the act of putting despair and pain and suffering on a pedestal, on the most, groundly person perspective, someone who doesn't know a thing. It's nothing more than like a cutesy aesthetic, like, oh, here's me like making out with the Grim Reaper. I literally see pictures like that. And people aren't ironically posting it, they're seriously posting that as like a cutesy thing, and they don't really understand like what they're saying when they do something like that. And I'm really I'm gonna expose that, and I hope rather than young people, rather than being offended, I hope they actually think about it and like, yeah, that is pretty dumb. I'm actually going to stop acting like that and thinking like that and feeling like that. Anyway, I mean, good luck with that. I would not have listened to anyone at that age, but I'm going to try. The depth of our despair and sorrow is unparalleled to anyone on earth, blah, blah, blah. That kind of thinking is wrong. Revenge and destruction. Even if you accomplish these things, then what? It's kind of cut off right there. That's great. You'd only be left with vast emptiness. If you do things half-heartedly, then you will most likely find only emptiness. What if even emptiness is not remaining? Let me tell you our Doma's true purpose, and that is nothing. We desire to bring the history of mankind back to zero. There it is. And again, this all overlaps with everything. And again, I'm showing you this is a kid's show, man. But then you go and look at, your own life, and then you look at like grand historical examples like millions of deaths in Cambodia, and it's like, I don't know how anyone can deny that shows aren't, if you have the knowledge, man, and you're aware and you have the perception, like the knowledge to perceive things that are being said to you, shows can really tell you a lot, more than the news will. This is Naruto. Again, I'm not going to play it. I wish I could, but I get hit with copyright all the time, and I'd want people to actually be able to watch the video, even though this is from a game, and games are probably less likely to be copyright than from the actual show. In the end, what this world needs is revolution. I'll take care of all the darkness from the past and restart things with a pure, unwritten future. Again, we're talking about time loops real quick. In this show, I'm not trying to be like a weeb or like nerd out on you or whatever, but like this show seriously is very profound and like will tell you a lot. Speaking of time loops and cycles and stuff, Naruto over there and Sasuke, they're like the hostile brothers, like Cain and Abel. Sasuke being Cain, Naruto being Abel. In the show itself, it talks about how they're the reincarnations of past heroes and villains, basically. They're like the third or fourth iteration of the same guy from the past, and these guys keep butting heads throughout time until they can actually truly reconcile with each other, which they never were able. In the other incarnations, they were never able to do it. Obviously, at the end of Naruto, he's finally able to like reach Sasuke's heart and bring him around, which really, there's a lot of things you could say about that, which is really what we need to do. And if it also shows like how far you might have to go for a friend, like what you might have to be willing to do to like actually get someone to change. And I know you don't have the time in the world to do that for everyone in the world, but if everyone did that for one person, probably make an impact. Anyways, I'll take care of the darkness from the past, restart things for the pure future. So what are you saying? You're going to cut off all your memories of Team 7. It's very blurry writing, but so Naruto asks him again, you're going to cut off your memories with Team 7, which is like his friends. I'm going to cut off my past. I learned everything from people of the past. It's because I had my friends that I was able to keep moving forward. Respect for the ancestors, things like that. They're what created the me that's here now. I'm never going to let you cut that away. Now we're getting to my last real world example. After this, the video's over, finally over. Hopefully we can keep it just under an hour. This is recent news. The Pol Pot thing was decades ago, whatever. This is, you might have already made this connection before while I was talking about this whole time and wondered if I was going to bring it up. There's all this talk about the Great Reset in relationship to the disease that's going on right now. And when I'm being vague when it comes to topics like this, it's not because I want to withhold the truth from you as an audience. That's YouTube's. That's YouTube that feels that way. It's not me, because I'm not in charge of censorship. Anyway, so I'm going to play this clip. Hopefully it doesn't get copyright.
As you very well said, the World Economic Forum, Prince Charles, Joe Biden, so many economists are talking about this concept of the Great Reset. What the Great Reset means is basically an idea that is talking about promoting a global effort from the side of governments in order to take the opportunity of the pandemic crisis in order to implement measures that are going to incentivize and push the environmental sustainability and equality policies that have that they basically think should be implemented.
He gave basically a quick little just baseline description of what the Great Reset is. And again, this is I have a picture up here, the World Economic Forum's own website, and it's basically, there's another video. A lot of people, I don't know, for some reason didn't like the video. It's just a clip of Rahm Emanuel. I think he was like the governor of New York or some crap at some point. There's even whatever. I can't finish one thought without another example like shooting into my head. But like, he says something like, never let a good crisis go to waste. So when there's chaos, there's an opportunity to reinstitute a new kind of order. Yeah, that's true even in your own individual life. And I talked about previously in this video, I'm going to do a whole video on it, on how these guys take a principle like chaos and order that's like fundamentally like a natural occurring phenomenon in like the life of a human, and like something you need to like master to the best of your ability, and they twist it into like a dark occult tool to basically, David Icke calls it problem, reaction, solution. There's a lot of ways you can look at it. So there's things that are going on in the world with this disease. They're calling it the Great Reset in relationship to it because they want to, reshape the world as it's going through. They want to do stuff that they feel like they should have been already doing for a while, and this seems like a good opportunity to do it. So right here it says the Great Reset, World Economic Forum. There is an urgent need for global stakeholders to cooperate in simultaneously managing the direct consequences of the blah 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 crisis to improve the state of the world. The World Economic Forum is starting the Great Reset Initiative. Again, this ties into the whole zero thing, and the political, economic, and social disruptions it has caused is fundamentally changing the traditional context for decision making. The inconsistencies, the inadequacies, and contradictions of multiple systems from health and financial to energy and education are more exposed than ever amidst the global context of concern for lives, livelihoods, and the planet. Leaders find themselves at a historic crossroads, managing short-term pressures against medium and long-term uncertainties. The opportunity. As we enter a unique window of opportunity to shape the recovery, this initiative will offer insights to help inform all those determining the future state of global relations, the direction of national economies, the priorities of societies, the nature of business models, and management of global commons. Drawing from the vision and vast expertise of leaders engaged across the forum's communities, the Great Reset Initiative has a set of dimensions to build a new social contract that honors the dignity of every human. Sounds really nice. I don't know, I'm not trying to be a fearmonger, man. Like I said, I think, like I was pointing out, certain ideas are no longer going to be allowed. Certain kinds of people are no longer going to be allowed. Like certain morals, certain values, certain behaviors. I basically think they're going to tighten the leash, man. That's what I think. When you watch these videos, if you do watch them, the end message should be, okay, like I've said a million times already, I need to basically take moral inventory of like what I actually care about, like what's truly important, and focus on it and dedicate yourself to it and mean it with all your heart and soul, become wise, act accordingly, and and start doing things. Don't just watch. Don't just be passive. Get in the game and start doing. We have to change minds and hearts, man. That's really what it comes down to. If we're gonna even put a dent in this thing. I'm not trying to be dramatic, but the baseless Great Reset conspiracy theory rises again. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, addressed the United Nations General Assembly in a pre-recorded message. On Monday morning, the phrase "the Great Reset" trended with nearly 80,000 tweets. Blah blah blah. Right-wing conspiracy theorists. Conspiracy alleges that a cabal of elites have long planned for the whatever. I don't want to read that, honestly. That's how fucking paranoid I am about it. So that they could use it to impose their global economic control on the masses. And so, I mean, you can think of it what you will. I'm talking about zero and resets, and this is relevant right now in your face to that concept, to that topic. Make of it what you will. That's really what I'm going to leave it in your hands. That's all. I hope some of this made sense to you guys. I know I ramble a lot, but I think it all ties together. Got a ton more videos coming. I hope you guys watch, check them out. So, thanks for listening, guys.